Boris Johnson. He's about to appear at the last hustings of the Tory leadership campaign going on tonight. Hatred and prejudice.
To keep the outbreak contained.
Theresa May has warned that political debate in Britain and around the world
tonight as a warning that more needs to be done to keep the outbreak contained.
Theresa May has warned that political debate in Britain and around the world is descending into rancour and bitterness. In what was billed as her last major speech as Prime Minister, she said an unwillingness to compromise was corroding democracy and could lead to a dark place where people are driven by hatred and prejudice. Some saw that as a message for her likely successor, Boris Johnson. He's about to appear at the last hustings of the Tory leadership campaign going on tonight in East London. Our political editor, Gary Gibbon, reports.
Vladimir Putin was the only individual named in Theresa May's attack on absolutists who threatened democracy. The Prime Minister said she was worried about the substance and tone of democratic debate at home as well.
This absolutism at home and abroad is the opposite of politics at its best. It refuses to accept that other points of view are reasonable. It ascribes bad motives to those taking those different views.
Without naming them, Theresa May warned those fighting to succeed her that a sustainable compromise was needed on big issues like Brexit. The alternative, perpetual strife.
Whatever path we take must be sustainable for the long term, so that delivering Brexit brings our country back together. That has to mean some kind of compromise.
She attacked those who blamed all problems on political enemies or who offered easy answers.
Brexit means Brexit.
Do you bear any responsibility yourself for some of the corrosive language which you were attacking? Attacks on political elites, citizens of nowhere, and maybe glib language like red, white and blue Brexit. When you look back over the 3 years as Prime Minister, is running through a wheat field still the naughtiest thing you ever did?
I have to think, I think one of the silliest things I ever did was answering that question. But there we are. On the issue of language, look, has every sort of phrase I used always been as perfect as it should be? No. I mean, there will be phrases that people will have both interpreted in different ways from what was intended. But in overall sense, what I'm saying is that what we now see, and I've seen it developing over time, is a coarsening of the language in our political debate.
Earlier in the Commons, Theresa May confronted Jeremy Corbyn with the full-page newspaper ad, which today attacked him for failing the test of leadership on handling anti-Semitism. It was signed by a third of Labour peers.
You have failed the test of leadership. Apologise now.
Peter Mandelson and his friends have put an advert in. I can't understand why. They could have simply emailed or written or come and met Jeremy Corbyn. He's had an open door.
I've never been one of the people calling for Jeremy to go.
But he's under an ultimatum now with this ad, isn't he?
Well, I think this is an ultimatum that says you cannot win the general election whilst you've got the curse of anti-Semitism.
Remember, a number of them were involved in a vote of no confidence against Jeremy Corbyn a number of years ago. What then happened, we came together as a party and we almost won the 2017 general election.
You know, when leaders get into denial, that's a very dangerous place for them to be. That we have a
Labour's rift on anti-Semitism is intensifying just as the party needs to engage with a new Tory leader. The front runner tonight arriving for the last hustings. The last votes should be posted tomorrow.
Okay, well turned up, everybody. Fantastic. Well, we might as well knock this on the head.
Well, we asked the Labour Party to come on the programme tonight to respond to the Lord's anti-Semitism allegations. Nobody was available. Earlier, I spoke to the Labour member of the House of Lords, Joan Bakewell, who was one of the signatories to that newspaper advertisement. And I began by asking her why she'd put her name to the complaint.
I'm rather late coming to this issue. I've come to it for personal reasons. Initially, one or two Jewish friends started saying to me, "What's all this about anti-Semitism in the Labour Party?" And I said, I don't really know. Perhaps it's a little bit of local difficulty. They'll sort it out. And then I had friends who were saying, we're resigning from the Labour Party, and had other friends saying, it's insupportable, you know. And then they started to say, what are you doing about it? What's the Lord's doing about it? And I thought, it's really time to get stuck in here and find out what's happening. And as I uncovered the story, I was appalled.
But why are you laying the blame so firmly at Jeremy Corbyn's door? I mean, he has acknowledged the problem. He said he's totally opposed to anti-Semitism. He's boosted the numbers of people working in the Labour Party trying to tackle this. Why has he failed?
Because he hasn't done enough. He's done a number of things. They've not been effective. He put up the numbers investigating. It hasn't been effective. So he needs to show more leadership. We want leadership. We want to have the sense that the leader of the Labour Party condemns this in the face of the public. He makes an absolute statement about it so that everyone can hear loud and clear that the Labour Party is a place that welcomes Jews, that has a fine tradition of having Jewish members. So we need a statement and leadership much stronger than we've seen so far.
This ad says Labour is no longer a safe place for all members and supporters. Are you saying Labour is not a safe place for Jews?
Well, that's what they tell me. I'm listening to friends, I'm listening to contacts, I'm listening to Jewish people who say this to me. When we have someone like Maureen Lipman writing an article saying, I'm a lifelong Labour supporter and I'm not anymore. We need to listen when intelligent people say these things.
One of the problems, I suppose, for Mr Corbyn's supporters with this list of signatories to this ad is that it does read like one of Tony Blair's garden party invitation lists.
I never went to a Tony Blair garden party in my life. Well, there are misconceptions and stereotypes of how people are. I mean, you can stereotype them different ways. We're all quite old, for example. Are you going to condemn us for that? I hope not. I mean, people live in their own minds and their own consciences. They come together when they share common anxiety.
What I mean is, Corbyn defenders say the question of anti-Semitism and the difficulties the Labour Party is having with it is being used to attack Jeremy Corbyn by people who have always attacked Jeremy Corbyn. And many of the people on this list have always attacked Jeremy Corbyn.
Well, look, I speak for myself. I've never attacked Jeremy Corbyn. I don't think he's a particularly strong leader, and I'm a Remainer, so my politics are quite explicit. I don't think he's anti-Semitic, but I think he's been weak about this particular issue.
So you're prepared to give him more chances to correct this? You're not saying he needs to go?
I hope that there will be a response to this which will tighten up the process, but I also think there's something else going on. I think there's an issue about what we feel about the Israeli-Palestinian issue. It's a political issue, and we need to be able to discuss that. And it's almost as though we're not talking about that. We're simply saying Israel is at fault. Jewish people, therefore, by association with the greatest Israeli Jewish state in the world, are at fault. And that won't do. We have to talk about Israeli-Palestinian issues, which have always been of concern to the Labour Party, but somehow they've never been talked about.
Baroness Bakewell talking to Krish earlier. Now, President Trump's string of attacks on 4 congresswomen have been condemned as racist by a vote in the US House of Representatives. The vote, which passed mainly along party lines with just 4 Republicans voting with Democrats to condemn the president, led to a bitter debate on race, ethnicity and political ideology in the US today. Kieran Jenkins reports from Washington.
Some of us have been victims of the stain, the pain, and the hurt of racism.
First, the fury.
Segregationists told us to go back.
One after another, Democrats rose to remind the president that words have consequences.
And yes, I am a proud naturalized citizen born in India, a proud patriot, a proud person who belongs in this country.
And make no mistake, when people tell me to go back to where I came from, that is a racist insult because it's based on race. If I was white, they would not tell me to go back to China.
Now, the chaos.
To join us in condemning the president's racist tweets.
That word, racist, from Democratic leader Nancy Pelosi, set sparks flying.
And a shameful abdication of our oath of office.
I was just going to give the General Speaker of the House if she would like to rephrase that comment.
It drew a Republican demand that her words be struck off, censored.
And I ask the words be taken down.
The last year that happened, appropriately, 1984.
I came in here to try to do this in a fair way.
There was disarray.
Because we want to just fight. I abandoned the chair.
There was disagreement.
The chain of 3 tweets sent out by President Trump. And in those tweets, I see nothing that references anybody's race. Not a thing.
Then history.
Members will record their votes by electronic.
Only 4 Republicans supported it, but for the first time in over a century, the US House of Representatives voted to rebuke a sitting president.
I'm dealing with the biggest bully I've ever had to deal with in my lifetime.
The self-styled squad of 4 non-white congresswomen he targeted, though, know he isn't done. Sure enough, the president just pumped out this ode to himself on Twitter, and look at how it ends, with the hallmark of a man who bears a grudge.
Kieran Jenkins reporting from Washington there. Now, the British-Iranian mother, Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe, has been transferred from prison to a hospital in Tehran. Her family had been calling for her to receive better medical treatment